What is up, guys? It is spooky season, and that means two things. One, Halloween is just around the corner, and two, Halloween Horror Nights is here right now, baby. So if you guys remember, 2 years ago, I believe, I did a Halloween Horror Nights experience whenever there was Last of Us and Chucky and a bunch of other haunted houses. Had a really great time. Well, this year, I was lucky enough to be able to have that same exact experience. This is not a paid, endorsed video, but the representation over at Universal did provide me with a free admission ticket as well as an express pass. Same with my wife. So just for the sake of throwing it out there, I was able to get in for free. And I just want to tell you about the experience that I had, all the different houses, what I thought about them, what I thought of the park and the scare zones and how the houses were put together, as well as this time specifically, I actually stopped and tried a good amount of the food that was there. So if you're a Halloween Horror Nights fan, or if you're considering whether or not you want to go this year, this is the video for you. Let's get into it. So me and my wife arrived in Orlando at Universal Studios sometime around 3:30 p.m. or whatever. I actually bought the Scream early passes, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. That's one of the number of add-ons that you can have if you decide to have a Halloween Horror Night over at Universal. And unfortunately, as soon as we got there, like the moment we pulled in, it started to rain. Damn, Florida, every time I come here. But the Scream Early Pass is something where you actually can get early admission into the park. So typically the Halloween Horror Nights segment of the night doesn't start until 7 p.m. and then it goes all the way to like 2 a.m. But if you get the Scream Early Pass, you can actually enter the park as early as 3 p.m. And so between 3 and 5, you get to ride whatever rides are still operational in the normal park day. And then between 5 and 7 is where that normal operation starts to shut down and everybody prepares for Halloween Horror Nights, and some of the haunted houses start to open up a bit early. And unfortunately, we did miss enough time, as well as the rain downpour. We really didn't get to experience much of the rest of the park as far as the last little bit of rides that were open or anything. So we pretty much just walked around, tried to stay as dry as we could, and went ahead and got into line early for Five Nights at Freddy's, which ended up being our first house. From what I had seen in TikToks and a number of other things, that typically was the house that had the longest wait once the doors opened. So I wanted to make sure that we knocked that one out first. And I'll be honest with you, at this point, because of the rain and because everything was already shutting down, I honestly felt like maybe I had wasted my money with the Scream Early Pass. But very quickly, once the actual houses started to get rolling, I realized how much of a benefit that pass was. So as I said, we started with the Five Nights at Freddy's house, and that one was a lot of fun to start with. I've never really played the video games much. I live streamed them for a little bit before the movie came out, but the movie is really the lion's share of the experience that I have had with this property, which I thought was decent, and I'm looking forward to the second one. I think they're going to do a much better job with that one, but it really did recreate what the feeling would be of walking into the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Gallery, where that outside of the house is built just like the outside of the pizza gallery that you saw in the movie. You walk in, the first thing that you see is all the animatronics on stage, like a demented Chuck E. Cheese singing that song from the 80s. And then you start to go through these little tight corridors that is very much recreating the experience of the video game, where there's jump scares, there's animatronics that pop out, there's the little cupcake guy that shoots out here and there. You've got the open face of some of the animatronics with all the spinning wheels and the blades, and eventually the villain of the movie, who I would assume is the ultimate villain of the video games. It was a very cool place to start, and I think if you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, it's going to be a blast to see the video game and the movie brought to life in that way. Once we got out of Five Nights at Freddy's, the Terrifier house was about to open, and so of course I beelined it to that one, because that one I assumed would be the second, if not the most busy one, once the doors actually opened. And of course, Terrifier was the main reason why I was really excited to go this year. You guys know, if you watch me for a while, I'm a big fan of Terrifier 2 and 3, and so hearing that they were going to be making a haunted house and even having an Art the Clown roaming around the park somewhere, even if that was the only attraction they had, I'd try to find a way to get in there and check out what that experience was like. And the Terrifier haunted house, look, maybe I'm a little bit biased as a fan, but this is my favorite haunted house that I have ever experienced at Halloween Horror Nights. Maybe at any haunted house, period. Not that I've experienced a ton outside of HHN, but this is absolutely a dream if you are a Terrifier fan. It quite literally is you walking through the events of all three films. You walk into the house and immediately you're met on the outside with them recreating the Terrifier like haunted house fun house that was shown in the second film in the amusement park. You go into it, and of course, there's tons of Art the Clowns popping out of closets and popping out of windows. They've got Vicky in there in a few spots. They got the pale-eyed girl, and you get to see like shadows and everything of him doing the little hacksaw kill, and then you see the after effects of that. One of the best parts is when you actually start to go through the clown cafe and you get that creepy like music that you can't get out of your head, where I was humming it. My wife's like, what the fuck is that song from? And it had one of the best jump scares of the entire night, where Art the Clown is actually like shown holding a little sign, and then he pops out of this little room, this little open in the wall, and it was actually him looking into a mirror. So when you're walking past it, you get like this false impression that you can see him and he's just in the distance, when he's actually right there and he's just reflecting in a mirror. So that one actually got me pretty good. You start to get into Terrifier 3, you get a bunch of Christmas lights, you see the chainsaw kill, you get to go through the bathroom where Vicky is rotting inside of the tub, and even the tail end of Terrifier 2 when you're going through the bathroom. Now, one of the biggest things that I saw be really hyped up by the first couple of impressions, I guess it was like the staff or maybe even some early influencer nights before the actual park opened to the public, was two things. One, the smell of the Terrifier house was like intentionally revolting. And two, there's two different paths to exit this house. There's a dry path, there's a wet path that's supposed to simulate like a bloodbath. And people were coming out like drenched, like head to toe, soaking wet. And so I actually knew this and prepared for it, where me and my wife both got ponchos, which ended up coming in handy with Florida weather anyway. And I actually bought her some nose plugs because I knew I would be able to tolerate it, but there's a chance that she wouldn't. And they must have gotten a lot of feedback those first couple of nights, because for as much of extreme reactions that I saw, it was pretty tame in comparison to what I was expecting. I didn't really smell very much going through that. And then eventually, once you make your way through the Terrifier 3 segment and you do choose the dry or the wet path, and you got to Art the Clown up top, like showing you which path you want to go down. We went down the wet path at first, and you just get like a little bit of a sprinkle and a spray as you go through. It wasn't that bad at all. So if you are worried about that, I think they must have really ramped it up at first. I think they even flooded one of the houses at one point, so they probably dialed that back a lot after the first couple of impressions. But pin in that for now, because we actually walked through the Terrifier house a second time at the end of the night, and I have more thoughts. But yeah, I absolutely loved the Terrifier house. It was cool. I actually texted Damian Leone while we were waiting in line and sent him a video of us getting prepared for it. And my wife actually halfway through the house closed her eyes, because there was just so many freaky things that she was looking at and so many good jump scares that she just stopped, and she was basically just holding on to me, letting me guide her out of the house. She's never done that before in any haunted house. She's way more scareable than I am, but she's never been to the point where she just taps out like that. So I told Damien that, and of course, he was very happy to hear that was the feedback. My hair is driving me nuts, so we're going to swap over to the hat. Hopefully there's no complaints on that one. After the Terrifier house, we went to the very next house that was closest to us in that area, which was the WWE The Horrors of the Wyatt Six. Now, I am not a WWE guy, but I did know a little bit about the characters that were going to be in there. I know one of them, unfortunately, was the wrestler that died not too long ago, so it's kind of like a tribute house to him. And of course, I've seen his mask and the look of his, I guess, wrestling team a number of times before. But yeah, this one is definitely one for wrestling fans. It is very horror themed, as you would assume for a haunted house. So all of the references, anything that you would have to be a WWE fan to really appreciate about this house is, of course, completely lost on me. For my level of knowledge about these characters, all I can tell you about my experience walking through this house was that it felt very Rob Zombie inspired. Some of that's just on its surface level with the look of these characters. They feel like Rob Zombie characters, like they're the extended Firefly family. But yeah, this one was pretty good. It was fun. It wasn't near as exciting as the last two, probably just because I'm not as big of a fan of this property, of this IP. But for being something that is born out of wrestling, which I've never really associated with horror, I think they did a really good job with this one. So I don't have too many extensive thoughts on it. If you're a WWE fan, I'm sure you're going to go nuts for it. It's just like the last video that I did, I actually vlogged our entire experience. I got our pre and post haunted house thoughts. I took video of all of our own experience going through the scare zones, and I even took footage of us trying the foods and giving our opinions and things like that, and us joking around as a couple. And much to my horror, I logged on today to start editing, and every single piece of video footage that I took that entire night got wiped. I had a big issue with my computer yesterday that I won't get into detail with, but it took me literally like 12 hours to rebuild a bunch of different things that I use for my video production. And I just realized today that that video footage was one of the unfortunate byproducts of whatever the hell happened on my computer. So after I passed out, threw up, and started crying, I'm unfortunately relegated to using a lot of B-roll footage that was provided to me through Universal, and I'm also going to use a couple of clips from a few other YouTube channels, and I'll give them full credit on that video as well, and is in the video description. So please check out their full videos down below. But yeah, that's the one unfortunate thing here, is that the video is not going to be near as personalized as I intended, but I at least just want to be upfront and honest about that. And the last one that was in this area is one that actually was not based on an IP. It's one of the original houses, and it was called Grave of Flesh. Now, this one of the 4 up to this point was my least favorite. Part of that's just because they don't have the flashiness of some of the more IP-driven houses, but this one, to me, it was a little bit monotone with the look of it. A lot of it is you quite literally having the illusion of being underground. So all the walls and floors and everything like that in the ceilings is meant to be like dirt, as if you're walking through a tunnel or a grave. Now, there were like, skeletons and ravens and stuff like that you would expect. There was a couple of cool spots whenever you get more into like an actual graveyard type setting at one point. So solid house. It just wasn't as visually appealing, or didn't have as much to like surprise me with. It kind of felt like the first segment that you walk in, you kind of just stay in that experience for the entire walkthrough. Once we wrapped up Grave of Flesh, we had to move to a completely different side of the park. Those 4 houses were right there next to each other. Then we had to go to the other side, and we actually went all the way to wherever the Jason Universe house is, because that was the last major house that was on my priority list that I also expected to probably have a pretty decent sized line. And at this point, it was like maybe 6 p.m. And so we were, 6:15, somewhere in there. And so we were only 45 minutes to an hour away from the floodgates opening and the public fully being let in. The Scream Early Pass timing was starting to run out. So we made a beeline over to Camp Crystal Lake to check out the Jason Universe house. And if you're a Friday the 13th fan, this is absolutely a love letter to you, because in a certain way, like the Terrifier house, it's very much like journeying through the Friday the 13th franchise, where, of course, they're very much highlighting the new Jason Universe design, which, if I'm being honest, is the least effective design and the one that I liked the least of any of the Jasons that were there, which kind of blows. But you know what? It's not the fault of the house. It's the fault of, I guess, Greg Nicotero. But the design for Jason Universe, I'm still not completely sold on. But nonetheless, you go through this house. There's a big Jason mask as kind of like your entrance, and you're very much in that camp counselor, Friday the 13th vibe the entire time. You're seeing a bunch of dead teenagers pop out with like arrows in their necks, and some of these classic kills recreated. Of course, a bunch of different Jasons popping out at you. The Jason Universe design most frequently, but then they also have the self-awareness enough to really give you some of those throwback designs. There was a guy who was very clearly trying to recreate the Richard Brooker design from the 3rd film. There was one of my favorites, if not my favorite, is the Part 7 Jason. Not a fan of the movie so much, but that design, the broken mask and the skeleton behind him, that one popped out. I kept looking for Derek Mears. I don't know if I missed him. Maybe it was because it was so dark, but there might have been one in there. And then, of course, you even get Pamela in spots. There's the shrine where her head is sitting there, and you hear some of the audio and the all that atmosphere that you want. But eventually Pamela gets in on the fun and starts to jump out at you a bit. So this one was definitely one of my favorites as well. As far as the IP-based houses, this one was probably my second favorite behind Terrifier. And after that one, once we knocked off all of the big houses, the ones that were at the top of my priority list, it was snack time, baby. Now, for full transparency, I've been on a pretty strict diet over the last, 6-7 weeks at this point. I'm not going to get into all the details how, but I'm like 12 pounds down in the last month or so. Thank you so much. But yes, it was a little difficult for me to give that up to be able to experience some of this food, but I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. When in Rome, let me go ahead and just cut loose for a night. So of course we're walking through the middle of the park and we had to stop at the Clown Cafe. That one, of course, catches your eye as a Terrifier fan. So me and my wife got two things that were there. We got the Sienna's burnt angel wings, which were like these chicken wings with like a sweet and spicy, like a bourbon glaze or something like that. And then the Clown Cafe bloody popcorn, which was quite literally popcorn, but there is marinara sauce dipped chicken, like popcorn chicken with some kind of like little pieces of pepperoni inside of it that makes it look like chunks of blood or body parts or something like that. And I'll start with the positives first. The wings were pretty good. You know, it's a little difficult sometimes to eat an entire wing. They don't section it off with the flat and the drum. It's just one big wing. So a little bit, you know, difficult with a sticky glaze to kind of navigate that one. But it tasted pretty good. I did like the sauce. And my wife, who is really not into spicy food, it wasn't too spicy for her. So she enjoyed it too. Art's Bloody Popcorn, however, no, that was like a $10 purchase, and I didn't think it was very good at all. Now, it didn't help that mine was cold, but it quite literally is just a weird mix. You have room temperature popcorn, which is the cheapest thing you can possibly serve, and then you have the popcorn chicken, which is, you know, pieces like this, and you maybe get like 10 pieces of that chicken throughout the entire thing. There's like 4 or 5 on top and 4 or 5 on the bottom. And like I said, it was cold, so it wasn't even like it was a good, delicious chicken. So that one I would not recommend. Maybe I got a bad one. Of course, that's always possible. But that's literally the only thing that I ate the entire night that I was not satisfied with. And so we sat there for a little bit trying to let... at this point, it was almost 7 o'clock. We wanted to see what the crowds were starting to look like. We were kind of chilling for a little while and kind of... it was very humid and muggy, as you can expect, in rainy summer weather in Florida. So we were just kind of relaxing, pacing ourselves. And so we decided, while we're here, let's go ahead and try a couple of the other foods that are nearby. And so I didn't see like a branded name for it, but it was like this little clown that wasn't Art the Clown that was perched right next to him. And they had 2 items. One of them was a humongous mozzarella stick that was called Death by Cheese Stick, and a massive, like, foot-long corn dog that was called a appropriately named Freakishly Long Corn Dog. The mozzarella stick came with like a spicy marinara, and the corn dog had like a jalapeno ranch and bacon bits on top of it. Now, one thing to know about me is that I absolutely love hot dogs and corn dogs. I grew up in Ohio. Cincinnati's like the coney dog capital of the fucking world. So chili dog, stuff like that, unfortunately, that's like a big vice of mine. And I thought the corn dog was pretty solid. It tasted good as far as the jalapeno ranch and everything like that. It had good flavor to it. The only thing that was weird was the actual corn dog breading didn't taste like a corn dog breading. It tasted more like pancake batter. So that was like texturally a little bit weird. It was nice and soft, but it didn't really give corn dog vibes, but it was solid enough. But then the mozzarella stick absolutely delivered. Now, we all know when you get a mozzarella stick, the test of whether or not it's going to be delectable or not is the cheese pull. And you know, as I said earlier, my footage unfortunately got wiped, so my cheese pull glory little food porn moment is gone forever. But you broke that thing in half, and then it would just stretch all the way out to here. So that one was delicious too. So you can't go wrong with any of those things. If you're just stopping for a little snack, all of them were good for just like a little bit of fuel. But I would say don't do the Art's Bloody Popcorn. Maybe get the little sunglass cookies instead. Now that we were refueled, we got back out there and we backtracked a little bit to go to one that was on the way to the Jason Universe house. And it was another original idea by Universal, and it was called El Artista, a Spanish Haunting. And the best way that I can describe this house is like, it's like Guillermo del Toro made a Phantom of the Opera movie, where it's very much you stepping into like an artist's house, and it's during like the Victorian era, so everything's very much old styled. And then you start to see like gargoyles and shit coming out and certain little golems or whatever. So it very much has like a period piece quality to it. This one I thought was fun. I definitely liked it better than Grave of Flesh as far as the more original houses so far. And I think if you're into like some of the old Universal stuff, like Phantom of the Opera, and you're into more of those period piece stuff, and even, Crimson Peak and things that Guillermo del Toro has done himself, I think this is a house that you're really going to dig the style of it. I really like the production of the way that they made the inside of this house and the courtyards and things like that. It was put together well. After that, we moved over to, I think, the two farthest houses, which were right next to each other. And the first one was going to be Fallout, which was actually our last IP-based house of the night. And I'm actually really behind. Of course, I have played a couple of the Fallout games, Fallout 4 and a little bit of Fallout 3. But I have only watched one episode of the show so far. And I thought the first episode was awesome, but then I got super busy and then it just got put on the back burner and now it's been months. So by the time season 2 comes out, I'll get caught up on that show. But this is a house that is very much based off of the TV show and, by proxy, also the video game, but really, really honing in on the Walton Goggins ghoul character and things like that from the show. And while I liked this house, I got to be honest, this one I think was the most disappointing one of the night because it really wasn't very scary or thrilling. It was just kind of like walking through Fallout. Now, for some people, that might be cool enough, just getting the experience of the world of Fallout. But, haunted houses are supposed to be scary. And while they have attempts at having characters pop out at you, it felt like more like an adventure thrill or something like that versus something that's actually creepy. And there's a lot of really dark stuff in Fallout. Like, that's a really brutal game at times. So I felt like there was a lot of opportunities for them to ramp that up much more. Last of Us last year is a game that in a show that very much kind of has that tone in mind as well, where it's a lot of action, adventure, and thrills, but they really harnessed the horror of things. There was a lot of great scares in that house. Fallout, unfortunately, I felt like was a little bit less of an effort there. So have managed expectations walking into it. If you want to just have the fun of stepping into the world of Fallout, you'll like it. If you're going for scares, I think this is one of the least effective ones of the night. Right next door to Fallout, we had Galkin Monsters of the North. And this one actually, right underneath Terrifier and Jason, was my favorite house of the night, and easily my favorite of the non-IP based haunted houses. Much like the last one, it very much gave me vibes of a certain director. This one I can best explain as stepping into a Sam Raimi film in the winter woods. So it very much had like Evil Dead vibes to me. You're stepping into something that's supposed to be very much like this cult in the mountains or something like that. And so you have a lot of different ghouls and deadite looking things popping out at you. There was one that was really badass where you're walking through like this bone tunnel and there's this gigantic beast's mouth that's just kind of going at you at the top that very much looked like you're about to get devoured. So this one had some great scares. I loved the production value. It was very like a lot of mix of tones of some of the woods and some of the snow and the cold and all the blood and the gore. So this one was a massive surprise. The name of it really didn't make me think I was going to be all that impressed, but it ended up being one of my favorites of the entire night. And after that, we only had 2 left, and it was only like 8 p.m. at this point. So we went to Dolly Let's Play Dead. And this one was actually my wife's passionate least favorite house of the night. I wasn't quite as down on it. It was somewhere between this and Grave of Flesh for me, but just for the sake of having it in there, this is the one that immediately after being done, she was like, I didn't like that one at all. But this house essentially felt like walking into like a 4-year-old's nightmare, where it's all about like crayons and little drawings on the walls and big like weird looking balls of yarn and things being tied up. And all of the scares, all the scare actors and animatronics and everything were all essentially like baby dolls that would come to life. And funny enough, the first thought that I had to, yet again beat a dead horse at comparing it to a movie and filmmakers, this was like if the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey guys got a hold of the rights for Toy Story. Like Toy Story went into public domain and they made a version of it. That's what this house was like. And there was something that was kind of eerily charming about it, where it was very much like lighthearted and kiddie, but in a sinister way. I think the main problem with this house and why my wife didn't like it at all is because the style of scares that they go for here just aren't that effective. It's not like doors open and people jump out at you. It's not like you're getting tricked with mirrors like in the Terrifier house or having big, monstrous, gory animatronics coming at you. It's just people dressed up like baby dolls, and they're posed as if they're like Andy's in the room. And then all of a sudden, when you walk past them, they start to move. And the problem with that is, like, when you're in a haunted house, you're going to get scared. Like, people are out there to move and to jump scare you. And so when you clearly see them for a good 10 to 15 seconds before they jump out at you, you don't really have a reaction to it. And so even for my wife, who's very, very much more scareable than I am, she thought that it was a pretty weak house. So, but averaging out me and my wife's thoughts, I guess this one is the easy least favorite of the night. I don't know if anybody else had a better experience than I did. Of course, some of these haunted houses, sometimes you just get a bad place in line where you don't get the best collection of scares. But I think the style of it, where they're very much trying to act like, non-animated dolls, and then suddenly they're animated, just doesn't work as much because you're in on the joke. They're about to move right when you get close to them. And the final house of the night, unfortunately, I don't have any B-roll footage to be able to show you. It was not included in the package that I got from Universal, but it was called Hatchet and Chains Demon Bounty Hunter. And this one I also enjoyed quite a bit. It was second place as far as the non-IP houses behind Galkin Monsters of the North. And this one is like a twisted Western. You go into it and there's this house on the outside where there's a bunch of dead bodies already in the lawn, and there's this crazy haunted, like possessed looking chick in the front, and you go into this old little cabin, and then suddenly you're walking into this Western horror type world where there's a bunch of gunslingers and things like that. So I liked the Western vibe. I liked the tone and the atmosphere they went for here. There was a lot of really solid scares, so it was a really good one to end the night by. And the coolest thing about this, going back to what I was saying earlier about me starting to think maybe that Scream early pass that I bought was not really going to be much advantage for me with the rain and us not showing up right at 3 p.m. We completed the entire run of haunted houses with an entire relaxed, like 45 minutes in the middle to stop and eat like a late lunch by 9 p.m. With the house opens at 7 p.m. or the park opens to the public at 7 p.m. 2 hours later, we were already done. So that is something to consider. If you're somebody that has done this before, that struggles to get to all of the houses in one night, even with an express pass, which I did last time. The last time I showed up at 7 p.m. and we booked it to every single house with an express pass and only stopped to eat and to use the bathroom once, and we still barely made it to that 10th house by the time the park was getting ready to close. We were done with the whole thing by 9 p.m. this time. So if I go back, I will absolutely buy the Scream Early Pass again. They also have something called Stay and Scream, which if you buy a pass to the actual park during the daytime and you're doing the whole Universal Studios thing throughout the day, Stay and Scream is essentially like Scream Early, but it's like bridging the gap between your regular Universal Pass and your Halloween Horror Nights. You just stay at the park. Scream Early's for if you're only there for the haunted house stuff. But I thought that was an awesome deal, and we were totally relieved and relaxed that by 9 p.m., we had pretty much gotten everything done, and now we can walk around and just enjoy ourselves if we want to do a house for a second time or get more to eat or just check out all the scare zones. And that's exactly what we did. So we walked around all the different scare zones. They had 4 different themed ones this year. One of them was like this masquerade ball with a bunch of different vampires. Another one was about these cat people, and there was this big house in the middle where this cat woman was like a witch, and she takes a kid into her house and gores him to death and then sends him back out as a cat. It was a really cool thing to experience, and it was literally like walking into different nightmares as you kind of explore the park. But one of the most awesome things that happened the entire night. So as a lot of you know who are Terrifier fans, they don't just have a Terrifier haunted house. They have a scare actor who is literally portraying Art the Clown, who is roaming around the park doing different things the entire time that you're there. I've seen videos of him walking around in the Santa suit. I've seen him walking around with the hacksaw. I've seen him on the tricycle going around with the little horn. And I didn't see him the entire night. And so at one point, we actually walked into one of the merch stores, and I was trying to find what Terrifier-themed shirts that they had, because they have these little general Halloween Horror Night shirts, but then they also have ones that are themed for all the different haunted houses, the IP ones anyway. And so I was trying to find that, and I found this little rack, this shirt rack in the middle of the store with all of the Terrifier shirts, and I'm looking through them, and they have every single size except XL, which is my size. They had small, medium, large, and then like quadruple X. And I'm like, damn. And I'm sitting there looking, and right as I'm looking, I see Art the Clown walking up to me. And I got video of him like doing a creepy wave to me. And after I put the camera down, I said, "Hey, Art, you got an XL for your shirt?" And I'm going to tell you, for not being David Howard Thornton, this guy was very convincing, to where if you had told me that was David walking around, I probably would have believed you. He did a fantastic job. But I said, "Hey, Art, you got an XL for this shirt?" And he's like this. He turns, he goes, and he starts looking through the shirts, and he doesn't find one. He's like, And he walks over to the other side of the store where they have all the Terrifier merch, and he's literally searching for a shirt for me. And there's a crowd around and everything like that, taking video of him and pictures and trying to goof around. And of course, there wasn't an XL over there either, but he's looking through and he looks at it and he goes, and I'm like, whatever. I wish I could have got video of the whole thing, but yeah, that was absolutely hilarious to get Art the Clown to shop for a shirt for me. And after that, I kind of gave up. I'm like, whatever. I don't like any of these other shirts. So I just wanted to hold out for that one. They said they didn't have one in the back. But then we walked around some more, had a couple of drinks and everything like that. And then eventually it was snack time again. So we found our way over to the middle of the park again and went to the other side of where all the little food booths were, aside from Clown Cafe. And we got 2 more snacks to try. So at the Fallout booth, they had this thing called the Pickle Bucket Baked Chicken, which is essentially these fried pickle spears that's given to you in a little tray of buffalo chicken dip. And aside from the fact that the fried pickle absolutely destroyed the roof of my mouth for almost a week, it was probably the best tasting savory thing that I had the entire night. I love fried pickles. I love buffalo chicken. I love buffalo chicken dip. So it was a hell of a little combination there. You just take it and dip it in. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't too spicy, so my wife enjoyed it as well. That one was really good. I tried to get her to try. They have like these little deviled egg mock things that are actually like some kind of a coconut gelatin that has like a pineapple thing, but she wasn't brave enough to try those. And for dessert, for the last thing that we had for the night, right next to the Fallout booth, there was the Wyatt Sick booth, and they had this thing called the Ramblin' Rabbit Fried Carrot Cake. It was like this giant fried Twinkie looking thing that was carrot cake, and next to it was this torn off little chunk of cotton candy. And I'm not a cotton candy guy, but my wife loved the cotton candy, so she had that. And they put like some kind of icing on the cake as well. And I'm here to tell you, that shit was the most delicious thing I had the entire night. And I knew with every single bite, I'm like, my diet is so fucked. But as somebody that loves carrot cake, that was awesome. It was warm and soft, and you had the icing on there. And of course, you get a little crispiness from the fried batter or whatever. And it was really only after I ate my half of that I realized that almost every single thing, actually every single thing that I ate that entire day was fried. And I had not had anything fried in well over a month. And I didn't feel the effects of it then, but let me tell you, about 20 minutes after we got all the way back to our hotel and started to wind down for the night, I felt like I had toxic waste in my stomach. Like my system was so accustomed to much better for you types of food that just absolutely going balls out on theme park food and fried food for a night. Oh, I paid dearly for that. But for that carrot cake, it was all worth it. After we got done having one last little snack time, we walked around some more. I ended up finding another Universal store that was having all the different brands. And so I ended up getting my shirt. I found an XL there. And the best part of that story is that the last thing that we wanted to do, because at this point our feet were starting to hurt, our legs were getting tired, we'd already experienced everything, but we wanted to go back through the Terrifier house one more time. One, because I wanted to try the dry path and see what the difference was. 2, I just wanted to experience it again because it was fucking awesome. And 3, because my wife closed her eyes, she wanted to challenge herself to not close her eyes this time. So while we were making our way back to the Terrifier house, we ended up passing the Art the Clown actor again, only now he was in full Santa art getup, and he was walking around the barrier that was right near the haunted house, and kids were taking pictures with him, and they were messing with him or whatever. And I went to the very back, like after the line of people, and I got my shirt out and I held it. And I waited for him to come by. And after he was done, messing with all the kids and everything, he came back by me and I said, Art! And I held it up and I said, I found the guy that took the last XL. I killed him and took it. Art, I found the guy that took the last XL.
Oh, for sure. Put on the glasses, put on the glasses.
Hell yeah.
Yo, put on the glasses, Art, put on the glasses.
And that was one of the funniest things that happened all night. I'm glad my wife was able to get video of it. But yeah, that was a cool little full circle moment of Art the Clown shopping for me. And then I just took it in a very Art the Clown approved way. So that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, we ended the night with going through the Terrifier house again. Now, what I will tell you is that experiencing the Terrifier house right as it opened was a little bit of a different experience of going through it at 11 o'clock at night, whatever it was at this point. And the two main things was the smell that was hyped up for the bathroom segments, oh, it was there that time. It was rank. Now, it wasn't like unbearable. It wasn't to the point where like you're actually like holding back your breath or anything like that. But it was definitely there where my wife was bitching the whole time. She's like, oh my God, where's my nose plugs? Because we just expected it was going to be the same as the last time. And it wasn't. So yeah, the later you go in the night, the more that whatever artificial smell they're trying to have percolate through the walls, it's definitely there. And then when we got to the end, unfortunately, because of reasons we couldn't get an answer for, the wet path was completely closed off. So I don't know if it was a trip hazard or if it flooded or whatever, but they had like a universal person standing there going. And so we didn't have a choice to go through the dry path. And the dry path is just like a bunch of different lights. And there's a Art the Clown headless actor that jumps out at you at the end. So not a huge difference. If you don't want to get wet, it's not like you're missing out on this awesome part of the house or anything like that. But yeah, so it was a little bit of a different experience on that second one. And that was the end of our Halloween Horror Nights experience. After that, we made the long trek back to the front, ended up getting an Uber home. And we had an absolute blast. I really, really enjoyed it. I had a great time the last time that I went. I had exponentially more fun this time. Part of it was just having a more relaxed day. That Scream Early Pass really came in handy. Part of it was that I think overall the houses really did step it up this year. I didn't go last year, so I can't compare it to last year. But from 2023, I did think it was a good bit better. The Terrifier house, the Jason house, Galkin Monsters of the North, those are the three standouts for me. Had a great time. The food was great. Just be careful how much you consume of it. And there was a ton of delicious looking things throughout the rest of the park that I didn't even get to try. There's like a pizza with meatballs and spaghetti on it for Freddy Fazbear. There was like some weird Sloppy Joe thing on the WWE booth that I didn't have the guts to try. There was walking tacos. There was birria ramen, all kinds of different food. So even if you don't want like the fried food, there are other options for you. They might not be like horror house themed, but there was a ton of stuff. So yeah, if you're a big fan of Halloween Horror Nights, of haunted houses, of any of the properties that actually did a themed house this year, this is the year to go. It was a damn good time. And if you go in October, you get the benefit of it not being quite so miserably hot as it was when I was there. And hopefully the weather's a little more cooperative with you and not sprinkling and keeping everything muggy the entire time. Finally, I just want to thank you guys for watching, but of course, thank Universal for providing me and my wife with the great opportunity to walk through your park and covering the charges for us. I really appreciate it. It was a great time, and hopefully I'll be able to cover the Halloween Horror Nights events in the future, because it really is a huge highlight to kick off spooky season in that manner. So if you guys check it out, let me know your experience down below. What was your favorite houses? What was your favorite thing to eat? And what is a haunted house that you hope makes it into Halloween Horror Nights next year? Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for my Terrifier reviews if you're a fan of that franchise. And I'm also going to put my experience from the last time that I went to Halloween Horror Nights for you to check out. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And of course, as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.